In the heart of Africa, a kingdom of bronze and ivory existed, so advanced that its first European visitors thought it must be a lost city from myth. But what they found was no myth. It was a civilization so powerful, its tragic end would send shockwaves across the world. This is the story of the Benin Empire, an African kingdom that defied expectations and paid the ultimate price. Before the first European ships ever dared to venture south along the African coast, a sophisticated society was flourishing in what is now modern-day Nigeria. This was the Kingdom of Benin, a land carved from dense rainforests by the Edo people. Its capital, Benin City, was a marvel of engineering. A vast network of walls and moats, 4 times longer than the Great Wall of China, protected a city buzzing with life. The city was planned with astonishing precision. Wide, straight avenues cut through bustling neighborhoods. Courtyards were paved, and homes were built with care. At its heart stood the royal palace, a sprawling complex that was the center of political, religious, and artistic life. Here ruled the Oba, a king who was not just a monarch, but a divine figure, a direct link between his people and the spirit world. The story of Benin's rise begins with a man named Uer, often called Uer the Great. In the 15th century, he transformed Benin from a regional power into a formidable empire. A brilliant military strategist and a visionary ruler, Uer expanded his kingdom's borders, conquering over 200 towns and villages. He wasn't just a warrior, he was a builder. He rebuilt Benin City, turning it into the architectural wonder that would later astound the world. Under his reign, the empire's political and social structures were refined, creating a stable and prosperous state that would last for centuries. When the Portuguese first arrived in the late 15th century, they were stunned. They expected to find primitive tribes. Instead, they found a highly organized society with a powerful monarch, a thriving economy, and an army that commanded respect. A Portuguese ship captain wrote back to his king, describing Benin City as so well organized, the Portuguese felt they were in one of Europe's great cities. A relationship of mutual respect and trade began. The Portuguese wanted ivory, spices, and textiles. The Oba of Benin was interested in copper, coral beads, and firearms to further strengthen his military. But the Oba was no one's puppet. He controlled the trade with an iron fist, dictating terms and ensuring his kingdom always benefited. This was not a colonial relationship. It was a partnership between two powers. For centuries, Benin flourished. This was its golden age, a time of immense wealth and unparalleled artistic creation. The Obas commissioned guilds of master craftsmen to record the kingdom's history, its spiritual beliefs, and its glorious achievements. But they didn't use paper and ink. They used bronze. Thousands of intricate plaques, statues, and masks were cast using the lost wax technique, a method so sophisticated it rivaled the work of Renaissance masters. These weren't just decorations, they were a royal archive, a visual encyclopedia of Benin's culture. They depicted kings in their full regalia, victorious warriors, Portuguese traders, and even mythical creatures from their cosmology. The Bronze Casters Guild was one of the most respected in the kingdom, their skills passed down through generations. Imagine walking through the palace halls, the walls lined with shimmering bronze, each plaque a story, each face a memory cast in metal for eternity. The wealth wasn't just in the palace, it flowed through the city's markets, where traders from across West Africa gathered. The empire was a beacon of stability and prosperity in a turbulent world. But as the centuries passed, the world changed. The friendly trade with Portugal gave way to a darker era. The demand for slaves grew, and while Benin participated, the Oba strictly controlled it, refusing to let his own people be sold into the transatlantic trade. This humanitarian stance, however, created friction with European powers who saw Africa as little more than a resource to be exploited. By the late 19th century, the scramble for Africa was in full swing. European powers were carving up the continent, hungry for resources and territory. The British, with their expanding industrial empire, set their sights on the riches of Benin palm oil, rubber, and of course, its legendary ivory and art. They called it the City of Blood, a propaganda term used to justify their colonial ambitions, painting the kingdom as barbaric and its cultural practices, including human sacrifice, as a reason for intervention. While human sacrifice did occur primarily during specific royal ceremonies, British accounts greatly exaggerated its scale to build a case for conquest. In 1896, the British acting consul general, James Phillips, decided he would force a meeting with the Obas of Benin. Despite being warned that the Oba was observing a major religious festival during which he could not see foreigners, Phillips was arrogant and determined. He led an unarmed expedition to Benin City, viewing the warnings as mere superstition. It was a fatal miscalculation. Whether on the Oba's direct orders or by the actions of his chiefs fearing a threat during their sacred rituals, the expedition was ambushed. Phillips and most of his party were killed. The British Empire was outraged. The story was spun not as a result of Phillips's reckless provocation, but as an unprovoked massacre. Revenge was swift and brutal. In February 1897, the British launched the punitive expedition. A force of 1,200 soldiers, armed with the latest machine guns and artillery, marched on Benin City. The Edo warriors, fighting with courage and traditional weapons, stood no chance. The resistance was fierce but futile. After 10 days of heavy fighting, the British broke through the city's defenses. What followed was not just a conquest. It was an act of cultural annihilation. The city was systematically looted. Soldiers went from house to house, from the palace to the shrines, stripping them of anything valuable, and then they set it on fire. The great city, a masterpiece of African urban planning that had stood for centuries, was burned to the ground. The golden sun bled over the smoldering walls as a deafening silence fell across its once vibrant markets. The greatest prize for the British was the art. The royal court's entire collection of bronze and ivory sculptures, the kingdom's history, its soul was plundered. Over 4,000 priceless artifacts were packed into crates and shipped to London. They were sold off to museums and private collectors across Europe and America to pay for the cost of the expedition. The British saw them as curiosities, trophies of a conquered people. They had no idea they had just stolen one of the world's greatest artistic treasures. When the Benin Bronzes, as they came to be known, were displayed in London, they caused a sensation. European art critics and anthropologists were shocked. They couldn't believe that primitive Africans could produce art of such technical skill and aesthetic beauty. For decades, they concocted theories that the people of Benin must have learned the technique from the Egyptians or the Portuguese, anyone but themselves. The art of Benin shattered the racist colonial myth of a dark continent waiting to be civilized. It was irrefutable proof of a complex, sophisticated African civilization that had thrived long before European arrival. Obas of Benin was captured and exiled, dying far from the home he had ruled. The independent kingdom of Benin was no more, absorbed into the British colony of Nigeria. The walls of Benin City crumbled, its history stolen, its people scattered, but a story like this never truly ends. Today, the Benin Bronzes remain scattered in museums and private collections around the world in London, Berlin, New York. For decades, Nigeria has been campaigning for their return. They are not just art. They are the kingdom's stolen memories, a vital link to a past that was violently erased. In recent years, the tide has begun to turn. Some institutions have started to repatriate these stolen treasures, acknowledging the injustice of their acquisition. It's a slow and difficult process, but it is a step toward healing a wound that is over a century old. The Benin Empire story is a tragic reminder of the devastating cost of greed and arrogance. It is a tale of a brilliant civilization that was plundered and burned, its legacy stolen and sold to the highest bidder. And so, the ghosts of Benin City linger in the halls of Western museums. Their bronze faces a silent testament to a kingdom of genius, a fallen empire that waits for its history to finally come home. Thanks for journeying into the hidden past with us. If you found this story as powerful as we did, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration into the forgotten corners of history.